Well, good morning, boys and girls. How are you this Sabbath? Are you doing well? I have a question for you. How many of you have back home a toy that is especially precious to you? Maybe a doll or a stuffed animal or a train? Have you? My story this morning is about a little boy who had something that was very special to him, and it was special because he made it. This little boy's name was Josh. Like Joshua. Where's Joshua? There's Joshua. His name was Josh, and he saved up money one day, or over several days, and one day was able to buy a piece of balsa wood. Do any of you know what balsa wood is? Balsa wood is wood that is especially light. It isn't as heavy as some types, and it floats very well. And he bought a piece of balsa wood, and he was old enough to use a whittling knife, and he started to carve himself. Day after day something. What do you think it was? He carved a bow, and a stern, and a hull, and a rudder. Does anybody know? What do you think it was? A boat. That's right. He carved himself a boat. And he then painted it red. And this is about what it looked like. See, there's the rudder. What's the rudder? What does the rudder do of a boat? A rudder steers the boat. It turns it one way or the other way. And after he painted it red, he dug through his mother's sewing basket and he found a piece of canvas that made a perfect sail. And after the paint and the glue had dried, and after he was sure to tie a string, a piece of string on the back of the boat so that he wouldn't lose it, he took it outside to the river by his house and put it in the water for the first time. And it was so exciting to see that the boat didn't sink and it didn't tip. He carved it just right so it sailed beautifully. And the wind would catch in the sail, and the current would catch it, and off the boat would go, but he would be sure to pull it back onto the shore, and then he'd set it out again, and he'd pull it back to shore. And he did this several days and had so much fun with his boat. He was so happy and loved his boat so much because he had made it. But one day something sad happened. One day when he put his boat out into the water and let it sail around a bit and was trying to pull it back, guess what happened? Well, the string broke, and his boat was carried immediately downstream by the current. And he could see his boat, but he couldn't reach it. And he tried to splash after it, but the current was so swift, it was so fast, it carried that little boat out of sight. And he searched for the rest of that day. He just really wanted to find his boat because he loved it so much, and he couldn't find it. And he went back the next day and thought perhaps the current carried it downstream and it got caught behind a rock or a log, and maybe I'll find it today. And so he searched all the next afternoon, didn't find it. He searched the next day, he couldn't find it anywhere. He was so sad because he loved that boat so much. Well, one day he was out searching again, and guess what he saw? That's right, he saw his boat, but what do you suppose, or who do you suppose was with that boat? A person, another little boy. That's right. The little boy had found the boat. Well, Josh ran up, and he said, "Oh, that's my boat." He says, "I made it. Can I have it back, please?" What do you suppose the other boy said? He was feeling cross. He said, "No." He says, "It's not yours, it's mine. I found it." But Josh said, "But I made it. It is mine." And the little boy said, "Finders keepers, losers weepers." It's not nice to say, is it? And Josh thought, what can I do? He said, "I will buy the boat back from you." He says, "I haven't any money." And he dug through his pockets and he says, "But I've got 3 marbles and 2 bottle caps and a rubber snake, oh, and a pocket knife." And he spread all his treasures on the ground. And the other little boy eyed them and said, He says, well, how much would you be willing to trade? And Josh said, I'll give you everything I have. So the little boy thought, okay. He says, it's a deal. So he dropped the boat on the ground. It wasn't that special to him, Josh could tell. And he grabbed the other items, and Josh picked up his boat and hugged it to him and said, oh, I am so happy I have it back. He said to the boat, you're twice mine. Once because I made you, and twice because I bought you back. And do you know what that reminds me of? What do you think, Corey? That's right. It reminds me of Jesus. You know that Jesus made you, each of you. He made you, first of all. But then we got stolen away from him by sin. And what did he do? He bought us back. That's right. Did he buy us with marbles and a pocket knife? He bought us with everything he had. He bought us with his life. So you can remember that as you collect the children's offering.